Hi there. Thank you for your interest in Nufarm's virtual learning series. I'm Bethany Allison, Customer and Brand Marketing Manager at Nufarm. Today we'll be talking about weed control in orchards and vineyards. Here to walk us through the key problem weeds, data, and solutions is Dr. Dan Beran, Technical Services Director for Nufarm's Crop Protection Products Group.
Thanks, Bethany. Today we're going to be talking about weed control in orchard and vineyards in the Nufarm portfolio to address the challenges that we encounter in managing weeds in orchards and vineyards. I'm going to share some information that's been presented by Brad Hansen out in the University of California because I think it really sets the stage on our approach to managing weeds in tree crops as well as vineyards. And one of the topics certainly that we're all familiar with is the rise of glyphosate resistance, really not only in orchards, but across the U.S. Now, as we look at some of the confirmed glyphosate resistant weeds that are commonly found and are commonly challenges in vineyards and orchards, these include things like horseweed, fleabane, winter annuals primarily, although they can have germination into the spring, as well as Pome or amaranth, one that we might think of as an annual crop weed in the Midwest and the South, but certainly that can be an issue as well out west in orchards and vineyards. Grasses, several have also been identified that are resistant to glyphosate. These include ryegrass, a common problem. Annual bluegrass can be a problem as well in this fall and winter time frame. And then jungle rice from a summer annual standpoint can be very troublesome due to glyphosate resistance. There's other weeds as well that either have higher levels of tolerance or just maybe on the verge of becoming resistant to glyphosate. And those include things like lamb's quarters. There's a number of grasses that overall efficacy is not great. Things like goosegrass, windmill grass, just to name a few. And in this whole arena, the issue isn't just glyphosate. Many of these weeds have also over the years developed resistant to other chemistries, and some of the things that are also very important, like paraquat and glufosinate in orchard weed management, there's also some concerns around those chemistries as well. So when it comes to managing these weeds, it certainly requires a diverse and integrated approach to managing these. So let's take a quick look at some of the cast of characters in this glyphosate resistant world a bit closer. The broadleaves, as I mentioned, hairy fleabane and horseweed or mare's tail, similar species, but there are some differences. Hairy fleabane is a bit shorter, more branched than horseweed, just from an ID standpoint. Horseweed's going to be taller, tends to have more of a single stem or fewer stems than hairy fleabane. But both of those winter annuals into early spring, difficult to control and widespread resistance. Pome or amaranth as well, summer annual with prolific seed production, can also be a real problem as we look at weed control moving from the winter to the spring and summer season. The grasses, this continues to really grow, and you look at the number of species that are troublesome. Many of the grasses that we deal with glyphosate resistant include the ryegrasses, jungle rice, goosegrass, and as I mentioned, there's additional grasses as well that just aren't that well controlled by glyphosate as maybe they had been in the past. And with things like ryegrass, we have concerns about other modes of action being less effective as well. So with all this in mind, really to manage and to address weed control in orchards and vineyards, it takes a portfolio. And so at Nufarm, we're excited to add a couple of new exciting products to our portfolio. We have Goal and GoalTender that have recently been added to our portfolio. And when we look at our lineup of products, we've got Goal and GoalTender added. We've got Cheetah and Credit Extreme, kind of our lead glufosinate and glyphosate options. When you add that to other products like Grapple, Orchard Clean, and Tuscany, we really have a wide range of products that are available across a number of tree nut and vine crops. And you can see the ones that are registered there across the number of crops that are out there. So when we're looking at addressing weed control problems in a variety of crops, it's great to have a diverse portfolio. And certainly with Goal 2XL and GoalTender being added to the portfolio, we really have a number of tools that can be deployed in managing difficult weeds. So let's talk a little bit about Goal 2XL. It's a trusted brand, been around for many years, and it's a staple in many of the weed control programs in grapes, as well as many of the tree nut crops as well. It has a wide range of crop labeling beyond just these permanent crops, and it's somewhat of a gold standard when it comes to providing residual control as well as post-emerge control. That's the one thing that Goal brings to the table, is not only pre-emergence activity, nice long residual, but it also can be used as lower rates to provide a tank mix option for post-emerge control. And that starts to play into the herbicide resistance management strategy that needs to be deployed in many of these perennial tree crops. The other thing about Goal 2XL, oxaflorphin is a long-lasting residual active, has great safety, and depending on the rate that's used, you can really string out your residual very well when you look at applying in a pre-emerge standpoint in the fall or early winter. Also from the oxaflorphin family, we have GoalTender added to the Nufarm portfolio. So here we have a water-based formulation, again, a trusted brand. It's been used in a lot of different cropping systems, has similar post-emerge as well as residual pre-emergence attributes like we see with Goal 2XL. The one nice thing, or one of the nice things about GoalTender with that water-based formulation, it addresses some of the VOC regulations, having a low VOC formulation like GoalTender. It also provides flexibility for applications later into the growing season, and it also provides application flexibility on other crops as well, where you're looking for a softer formulation relative to the EC formulation of Goal 2XL. So we're excited to bring the Goal products to our portfolio. And as you can see with Goal and GoalTender, coupled with Tuscany and Grape, as well as Orchard Clean, we have a nice number of residual and selective products. And that pairs up really well with our non-selective products like Cheetah and Credit Extreme as well. So let's talk a little bit about the flexibility that we have in our portfolio when it comes to timing within grape, almonds, and walnuts. So here we have a chart that we've built that kind of lays out a number of situations where you would be looking at the weed control options that are available in grapes, almonds, and walnuts, and looking at the safety really of how soon can you apply after planting or establishing some of these crops. And so one of the nice things, attributes of Goal and GoalTender, is great crop safety. So you can go immediately, you can apply during the season of planting in grapes, almonds, and walnuts. Other products and actives like Tuscany and Grape, for instance, you'd have to wait till a year of full growth before applying. And you can see with some of the other competitive products, it really varies based on the chemistry. But with our portfolio, we have the ability to apply these products, directly after planting, particularly with things like Goal and GoalTender. Some nice flexibility, which is really important when you look at the wide range of scenarios that managers are dealing with in these permanent crops. So one of the steps that we look at during the weed control season, so to speak, when it comes to building a successful weed control program, is at the end of the season, kind of in that late fall timing. This is from Brad Hansen as well, and UC Davis. One of the things that we would recommend, and kind of is confirmed here, is that take some time to evaluate, take a look back at how the previous year's weed control program performed. And then as you come into the fall, you can look at, maybe what some of the key winter annuals are that are starting to appear. You can look and find what maybe skips and misses you had in the previous year. So it's a good time to really set the stage for, what worked last year, what weeds are present, where they're present, if it's in the rows or in the row middles, and then start to develop your weed control program. You can get really granular and do some scouting, this type of form here that can give you an indication on what are your key weeds, how severe are they, and then let's build the weed control program from there. So let's talk, once you've done the weed control assessment, now you can start to think about fall burn down timing and fall burn down recommendations. And so let's talk a little bit about our products that we'd be using in this fall burn down timing. We're just looking at kind of cleaning up maybe things that were missed, or maybe addressing perennial weeds that are more difficult to control in season. So we have a number of products available. Orchard Clean is a high quality 2,4-D amine formulation. It's labeled for orchard floors, including apples, pears, stone fruits, the nut orchards as well. And so this fall dormant time is a great time to use a selective herbicide like Orchard Clean, where you need translocation, can help with root control on perennial weeds. It provides that opportunity to bring in a new mode of action as well, one that you're probably not using typically in a lot of these crops during the growing season. So it's a good opportunity to come in and provide excellent weed control on broadleaf weeds, maybe address some perennials as well, and use it at a time when you've got good safety here in the fall after dormancy and leaf drop. In addition, obviously Credit Extreme is our lead glyphosate formulation. It's a high load dual salt formulation. We like this formulation for a number of reasons. In this particular market, it's going to have excellent tank mixing properties. It'll mix well with amines. It handles hard water very well because of that dual salt formulation. And then it has the label that addresses a lot of the application timings, flexibilities, and crops that you would run into in a myriad of tree, nut, and vine scenarios. Typically, when we're looking at a Credit Extreme application in these environments, we'd be going anywhere from a 1 to 3 quart rate. And those would all really be kind of the rate window that I would look at, and the rate range that we would be looking at, depending on the difficulty of weeds. Perennials, obviously looking at higher rates as well. And then finally, knowing that we do have glyphosate resistant, if we're looking for a non-selective alternative to glyphosate in this burn down time, Cheetah is a great formulation, a very successful product for Nufarm. And that glyphosate, or that glufosinate alternative to glyphosate, has become very important, again, as we try to manage glyphosate resistant weeds and bring in alternative modes of action. And your rate range with Cheetah varies based on weed size. This is a product that's much more contact in nature than glyphosate, so we really adjust the rate depending on the weed size and maybe the stage of the grass that you're dealing with as well, going anywhere from 48 all the way up to 82 fluid ounces per acre. So those are our burn down products that play well in this fall, early winter dormancy season. And obviously, as we think about moving from just a burn down to setting the stage for weed control and residual programs going into the following season, putting these things down in the late fall, early winter to capture the winter moisture and activate these products. Here's the lineup of Nufarm products that fit very well into this timing. First of all, we would look at Goal 2XL as kind of the foundational residual product, anywhere from 5 to 6 pints per acre broadcast. Obviously, those can be adjusted higher if you're looking at a banded situation, just treating in the rows as opposed to the full acre. Similar rates for GoalTender. Again, that liquid water-based formulation is a 4-pound formulation, so obviously the rates correspond accordingly at 2.5 to 3 pints per acre broadcast and 2.5 to 4 pints per acre in a banded situation. Tuscany has been a really successful product in this tree, nut, and vine market. The rate range on that one goes anywhere between 6 and 12. Obviously, the higher rates give you longer residual. Sometimes those 6 to 8 to 10 ounce rates are maybe used in tank mixes or in sequential applications. But again, that Tuscany SC, a flumioxazin liquid-based formulation, has been really successful, and we'll share some data on that. Grapple, another really important chemistry for this market, has been used very successfully in these situations. 4 ounces per acre is your residual rate. It can be used at lower rates in tank mixes, but again, that grapple has been very successful on picking up activity on a key number of weeds. Its spectrum maybe isn't quite as wide as Tuscany or GoalTender, so it's typically going to be used in a tank mixture with other chemistries. Things like Tuscany or Goal would be good candidates for tank mixing with grapple. Now, the nice thing about all of these products here from a pre-emerge standpoint, they all have post-activity. So Goal 2XL can be used in lower rates as a post-emerge product, either as a standalone, but it's typically going to go out with something like a Credit Extreme, Cheetah, those sorts of things. Similarly with GoalTender, from a post-emerge standpoint in this time frame, we'd probably lean more towards the 2XL. That EC formulation is well established, and folks really like the use of that one. GoalTender has similar use patterns. Obviously, the rates adjust accordingly with the 4-pound formulation. Tuscany obviously has post-activity again, and all of these things, because they have post-activity, they pair up very well with things like Credit Extreme, Cheetah, Orchard Clean, the 2,4-D amine, or paraquat. So when you get two active ingredients or two products in the tank and they both have post-emerge activity, it takes the pressure off of the glyphosate as well as the glufosinate from a resistance management standpoint. So it's nice to have residual products that also have the post-emerge activity as well. So let's dig a little bit into some data here when it comes to the myriad of choices and products that are available in the tree, nut, and vine market. Now, we know that Allion and Dazaflam or Pindar have become, really common products that are used in dormant application. Allion's and Dazaflam. Pindar is oxyflorphin along with an ALS, so it's utilizing the Goal chemistry as kind of the base. But what I wanted to do in this particular data is just to walk through some comparisons of applying these products in this winter time frame as a standalone and comparing that to these standalone treatments compared to tank mixes or sequential applications. So what I've got pulled out here is standalone applications of Allion, Chateau or flumioxazin, Matrix or rimsulfuron. We talked about Pindar, and then we've got GoalTender as well. And so you can see we're looking at hairy fleabane and spiked goosegrass over a 3 to about a 5-month time frame. Just want to draw your attention to the overall weed control that we're seeing here. And they jump from 75, we've got some 60s, 50s, 48 there with Pindar, 58 with GoalTender. What you're seeing is some variability in some of these. Maybe the goosegrass isn't as good as the fleabane or vice versa. But the takeaway really is that as standalones, none of these work as well as when we start to look at tank mix combinations. And that's what we're showing here. Allion and Chateau, Allion and Matrix or rimsulfuron, Grapple would be our alternative. Obviously, Tuscany would be a alternative for Allion and Chateau. Similarly, we're seeing Allion and GoalTender. So really the takeaway with these is notice the much better control by tank mixing, or these three here are examples of sequential applications where you start out with one chemistry and then come back later with the Allion. So some good indications here of our concepts that we like tank mixes and sequential applications for resistance management. Some options to consider. Grapple and GoalTender would be very good. We see some examples of GoalTender, Grapple, and Tuscany, oxyflorphin, rimsulfuron, and flumioxazin as tank mix partners for Allion or in sequential applications. All of those end up providing a greater spectrum of control and help out with this overall resistance management strategy. Again, if we lean on a single product or a single chemistry, it favors resistance, or maybe not even resistance. It might just favor weed escapes or weed shifts to that particular product's weaknesses. So again, the big takeaway on this, tank mixes and sequential applications really make sense. Products like Grapple, Goal, GoalTender, and Tuscany all fit very well into this concept. So we wanted to test this. I'll share with you some work that we did. Again, here was a Nufarm trial that we conducted with Brad Hansen out in California, looking at a couple of different scenarios. So this particular trial was done on walnuts, and we were trying to achieve a couple of different objectives. We're looking at, number one, our liquid-based flumioxazin formulation, Tuscany SC, versus the dry flumioxazin Chateau. And so when we bring a new product, a new formulation out, we want to make sure that we have equivalent, and in some cases we'll see even better efficacy. And so we're looking at just straight Tuscany in combination with Credit Extreme along with water conditioner AMS plus non-ionic surfactant. And really, if you look across this first chart here, we're looking at overall weed control at 30 days all the way up to 90 to 120. And really what you see is statistically similar. In a few cases, the Tuscany was a touch better on a few of the weeds, but in general, good efficacy with the Tuscany relative to the Chateau. And you look at maybe some differences on some different weed species. You know, it looks like the annual ryegrass control was a touch better with Tuscany SC. So that was objective number one. The second then was to look at Tuscany versus Allion in more of a tank mix program. So we either have Tuscany at 10 ounces or Allion at 3.5 ounces in combination with 4 ounces of Grapple, Credit Extreme, and then the adjuvant package as well. And so that Tuscany is in the green here, and then the Allion's in the gray. And so overall weed control all the way out to 120 days, the Tuscany plus Grapple performed quite well and on par, if not a touch better, than the Allion plus Grapple. And one of my comments earlier was about weed spectrum. And so, you know, sometimes this is overall weed control, but sometimes you have to dig into what other weeds are there, what's causing some of the separation. And in this particular case, it was the annual spurge that separated out. When we got to the 120 days, the annual spurge control started to break with the Allion Grapple versus the Tuscany Grapple. And so you can see the number of species that we were looking at in this trial. And in this case, the annual spurge is what started to break. So again, the tank mixes and addressing what weeds you have present really can help drive some of the choices you make when it comes to the application timings, as well as the tank mixes and sequential applications that you're looking at. So we ran a real similar trial as well, again with Brad Hansen. This time we're out on grapes, and we're looking again at comparing Tuscany and Grapple versus Allion and Grapple. And we also have that Chateau matrix, kind of the alternative to the flumioxazin rimsulfuron recommendation that we have, just to kind of, again, verify those formulations and ensure that we have a formulation that meets the expectations of the growers and applicators. So again, what we're seeing in this particular trial, here we are at 30 and 60 days later. The green one, again, is our Tuscany plus Grapple. Here we've got 10 ounces plus 4 of Grapple. The dark gray is the Allion at 3.5 plus 4 ounces of Grapple, and then the light gray is the Chateau at 10 and 4 ounces of matrix. So equivalent AIs in these two. And again, overall weed control was a touch less with the Allion and Grapple. When you look at overall weed control, again, dig into the data. And in this case, it happened to be white stem fillery that the Tuscany plus Grapple was performing better on relative to the Allion plus Grapple. A number of other species were present on the site, as you can see here, willow weed, fillery, shepherd's purse, a number of weeds. So we know that in many situations, you're not just dealing with 2 or 3 weeds. You got to look at what the overall spectrum is and see how each product is expected to perform on these. So we've got a number of resources as we think of the complexity of weeds that are out there and the challenges that weed control can provide. We wanted to provide some resources on our website for all of these weed control recommendations. And you can get there by going to the Nufarm US crop website listed here, hover over with your mouse over this Find Your Solution, go down to specialty crop, and you can get to citrus, tree fruits, tree nuts, and vineyards. And what we have on each one of these is a weed control spectrum chart. We've used these, we basically have built these from various university charts. UC Davis, as well as a number of others, have some really good weed control data. And so we kind of distilled that down with our Nufarm portfolio of GoalTender and Goal, Grapple, and Tuscany. The way these charts are built vary a little bit from crop to crop, but we'll have a pre-emerge and a post-emerge set of columns. And then in the rows, we kind of have the weed species on annual grasses, annual broadleaves, all the way down to winter annuals as well. And so you can see the level of ratings from control to partial control as well. Really a resource that we wanted to provide to help you build your weed control recommendations based on the weed species that you have present. So we have that for vineyards. Similarly, go to our website and get to the tree nut resources. Here's an example of our almond weed control chart. We have tree fruit resources with similar weed control guides as well. This is our Pome fruit weed spectrum chart, very similar to the others. And again, it allows you to look at the weed control across products with pre and post emerge activity, and then the annual grasses, annual broadleaves, perennial grasses, and perennial broadleaf weed ratings as well. So really a comprehensive set of resources that we're building here, just as we're building our portfolio to help support weed control managers in nurseries and orchards and vineyard crops as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bethany, and thank you for our time here today.
Thank you, Dan. And thanks to you for joining this virtual learning series. If you'd like more information on the topics or products highlighted today, please visit our website at nufarm.com/US crop.